I love Jesus. Isn't that beautiful? They do that to me all the time. They come visit me sometimes. They come to the window, come down and give me a little, what's up? And they fly away. There's one little green, like hummingbird. Which reminds me of when my mom used to feed and put those little feeders with the Kool-Aid in it. Well, it's sugar water, but it's pretty cool. Anyway, so I just want to give you a thumbs up. We're doing good. It seems like a bonfire day. When things start getting like, you start getting in the tunnel and you start seeing that the tunnel's coming to an end, it's kind of fun to just drop a few things like in a chat. Said, okay, here comes the news chats are really fun because just get on these news chats. Hey, it's a couple thousand people. Hey man, you guys aren't into the red pill, blue pill still because it's turning purple rain real quick and King's coming, so might as well get ready to, get naked for the King because less we're wearing, more gold's coming and money's all burned up anyway, so what the heck? People are just like, what? And then some people are still with, Trump's coming back. This is Trump. Really? No, like, Trump wanted to behead us all and you're still for that? Like, didn't you know that Biden's got the same thing with the LGBT clause? That Janine was jacking the beanstalk and now that's your kindergarten, and if you supply, chop your head and we'll take your kid too. It's like, come on guys, wake up. You're under princely reign. And you gotta see it sooner or later. I mean, come on, let's get real. It's not that hard to see when even the birds sing when you're on the right melody. It's really simple, but people always got to complicate things. And I can't believe how many today, even I see walking on the street by the beach with masks all up and too many clothes. And they're just, I don't know, challenging the foe. That's all I could see. Because it seems like, between the double mask thing, all this stuff is just getting so exposed. And it's like, are you still going to believe the lie? And Dennis Prager is doing the biggest tap dance I've ever seen. When somebody on his show called on the hour where you can call and say, what's up? Any question, right? Well, I turn it on. It's like 11:15. And he's like, well, any question, but sorry, I had to cut that one off. It didn't really fit with the theme. But there is no theme. It's any question day. That kind of made you red flag it a little bit. And somebody called him and said, those masks don't do crap. I don't even want to wear them anymore. And he goes, yeah, I've always not been in favor of them, but I do wear them to please the others around me because I don't want to upset them. Like he's following the golden rule, but he never talks about the golden rule. So that was not Jordan Peterson there or something that Jordan Peterson affected him in, because the other thing was he snuck in that, I can't even see my dying mother. Ooh, that was like one of those government lines that we were hearing for so long. Like, hey, if your parents think this is wrong, here's how you set them straight. Since my parents already gone nuts, I guess that wouldn't be hard to do. So, let's see. Where were we? Oh, yeah. You gotta do... Really? Like, no, I'm free now. I work for a king. And when he comes, he's not gonna be like saying, why y'all dressed up? Because I'm not dressed up until the banquet comes. And he's gotta get here first. And we get the kingdom ready. But the kingdom's not ready now. And whoever thinks this is a kingdom, it definitely is for a prince. But all these princes are not in control. And it's getting more obvious with every passing troll. And that came out of, wow, I was like, where can I get a rhyme? But when you think about it, a lot of these chat rooms, it seems like they're kept alive by trolls who are on the side of the host and can't change sides. And then when I get on and expose them and the host won't admit they're wrong, well, then the trolls are kind of stuck because they're kind of by our books and all these silly things. So they're not really, they're kind of like pose trolls, or I don't know what they are. But it's funny that they don't want to jump on my side when I ask them, what's up with the king? But then they get kind of blurry when it gets pretty obvious, and they're like, yeah, I know what you're saying. Bless you, brother. And then you don't know if he's talking to them or he. But it is fun when you're winning, even when people lose control, because when you see them shut down chats like that when they just started 10 minutes ago, and all you're asking is simple things like, why don't you talk about the king? Because if you don't talk about the king, you're talking about a prince, and Prince has been way too long in control. And Purple Rain, it's like a prophecy. It's going to come because that makes the way for the king. So if you don't see Purple Rain coming, you better wake up, because that means you're serving a prince. And then I start asking the host, well, since you won't talk about the king, are you working in Tel Aviv or where's your condo? And then all of a sudden they're off the air, like, really? So that's how simple it is? Because I knew there was money coming in from a lot of places, but I think it was that basic. So that's the fun thing about watching things go, because for a long time I was studying the Bible and just watching the show, and I couldn't find a church that I was like, this guy's solid. He's always talking about prayer. He's always being like Jesus would if he had a church, and like how he said the church should be. So I was always disappointed, and I was always praying, what's up with these places? I think they should all burn up. But maybe I'm too harsh, and maybe you're just, so full of grace. But in the last few months, with all this masking going on, I've really been waking up, because the first thing I thought was, well, that's kind of how I would do it if I was God. I'd probably, bring some virus, let everybody freak out and test their faith. And then if they all freaked out and masked up, everybody else was all scared of the air, well, then I know how little is your faith. And all you got to do is look at all the churches, see which ones are masked, there you go. And the ones that aren't praying, well, that wouldn't be the ones to show. But even the ones that were actually praying and maybe not wearing this, were all dressed up and not even thinking about being naked for their king who comes naked. And he never said, hey, I want you all dressed up. He said he wants you like a virgin. And if you look at the original virgin that God created was Eve in the Garden of Eden, and she wasn't covering herself like she had shame. So we all say, oh, we got to get cleaned up for the virgin. We're the virgin. And I'm a man, so I don't really understand that. Even though I kind of stayed a virgin until, I think I was until I lived with a woman 6 years, which to a lot of people is married, but it wasn't to me, but it wasn't to Hawaii either. They didn't have common law marriage there, but for some reason, God blessed it, even though I really never made a covenant there. But I loved her. But she just wasn't the one for me for 1,000, or like I thought, like 1,000, for the rest of my life. It just didn't seem to fit. But I did love her, and she loved me, and she was ready to make that work and make a marriage of it. But I just didn't feel good jumping into something that wasn't from my heart. And I just told her, sorry, I just don't see you the forever type, but it's nothing against you. Maybe it's just our age difference, and she was 10 years older, and I'm not trying to be messed up, because I was with her and I loved her and everything, but it just wasn't flowing. So you always got to look towards the future. And if you look at all the princes and you say, okay, I'm pretty much married to whatever red pill, blue pill thing I'm taking, because they're giving me the taxes and they're giving me all the BS, really, because I've got poison food, I've got poison. Now the poison is pretty much money, because it's turning to pesos overnight. And you've got taxes, which are already impossible to pay because everybody's out of a job anyway. And you got GMO buds that are all chemically induced, so it puts us to sleep and makes us stupid as not as God's buds. And tobacco, which is filled with all kinds of chemicals to get us more cancer and more addicted to keep smoking and to keep that cigarette not let it go out. Like, that one's almost gone. these ones are grown in Oregon. I believe my cousin lives over there. And she told me those Indians are old school about their tobacco. And they don't let no white people, no one, come around their alcohol fields. Alcohol fields, sorry. I think of tobacco like alcohol. You don't do it too much. It's not that bad. Because nicotine is actually a pretty nice thing with tobacco. It kind of mellows you out when you got a lot on your mind. Sometimes you get a little excited. Gives you a little buzz. Mellow you out. Just like wine. Same thing. That's why Jesus made it. And then he drank it after. And it was like, it's pretty good. And the other people were like, dude, what's up with you, man? You're supposed to serve the good stuff first. Why do you say the good stuff later? Because usually they get everybody buzzed and then change the stuff so it wasn't as good. So when they get too drunk, they don't lose too much money. Because whenever there's wine, there's always going to be somebody who wants to drink too much. But that doesn't mean nobody should drink. It just means people should learn how not to drink too much. And when people get too drunk, they're kind of usually making themselves a fool by either talking too much, where too much truth usually comes out, and then they really look like a fool the next morning because everybody remembers what they said. If they weren't too drunk and could remember. But the other thing is that every time that those people get too drunk, they'll not only spend too much money than they should, because it's like manna. They just didn't take just enough. And then they have problems. Either they have headaches in the morning or something, dehydration and problems. So then they learn, hey, next time, probably it'd be good to drink less. And when Jesus made that wine, it was like the best wine around. And he drank enough to probably relax, I'm sure. But he didn't drink too much because he wasn't a drunk. But yet the Pharisees called him a drunk. But they also called John the Baptizer, who came before him, who was pretty wild and worshipped in the wilderness, in the desert, alone with God to figure out who he was. And when he came back and was ready for Jesus, he said, the axe is at the root of the tree. And if you're rooted in the wrong thing, that's not going to be good for you. And he was talking about blasphemy. He was talking about no forgiveness for the Pharisees, who were the leaders of the church, and pretty much are today, wherever you look, from Judeo-Christian to 503c to the synagogue, we all love to say. So, do you see what I mean? You've got 1, 2, 3. These are all three big movements right now. But all of them agree that Jesus is boiling in crap. And that's not my King of Kings. And that's why when you bring up the king, they don't want to talk. Because in their heart of hearts, they know that in the Talmud it says that Jesus is boiling in crap. So how are you going to bring him into a king and explain that to whoever you lost? Because you see, when the king comes, he ain't going to be for that. And if you've been supporting these people and saying, yep, Jesus is boiling in crap, but he's going to save me by grace, well, keep flexing real hard, because that's all you got. Because your strength is not in him. It is in your own might that your mouth came up with these beautiful words that made your own might seem like his. But it was the fellowship of the ring. And for whatever reason, I don't know if the leaders were fooled too, or they just drank the Kool-Aid, but they aren't into admitting they're wrong. So you can go down any list of these chat rooms. This one guy keeps coming on every other hour. And now he won't chat because he gets shut down too quick. So he just talks about whatever real quick. So I just have a hard time to understand why it's so hard for so many people to understand that the king is coming and he wants us ready and he wants us as his bride. And if that's how Adam and Eve worked and that's what he wants, then what would be so hard to hide? Because it makes me wonder, how many of these people are really supporting Adam and Eve, or they're having a problem with Adam and Eve as much as they're nervous about Adam and Steve? And do they know? Do they know beyond Fox News who's Adam and Steve and who's Adam and Eve? Because I thought it was not that big a deal, and that if Jesus wants to expose it like that, it's not going to hurt me. But those who are stressing about it and not wanting to see it, is it because you're too chubby and people will just look at you because you've been such a pig during this time? Or is it that you know Adam and Steve that you're saying are Adam and Eve and you're actually for these LGBTQ laws? So that when Janine says she's Jack or Jack says she's Ginny, it's all good because your kindergartner will be too. And then if you have any problem with that, about them, like, just look real slow, doing that, then you'll just lose your head and they'll take that kid. And we've been hearing stuff like that from the Q movement, which is now burned away. It makes you wonder if they were gaslighting for what's really coming into play. And then these guys that are like pastors that are supporting this shit, where are they in all of it? Is it just about money, or do they really know the plan? And are they going to be pulling the swords out quick? Because they are leading the church, and many followers are still, hey, brother, I love you. And it makes you wonder if they're not going to pull out the swords. Are the ones being led down that wrong road going to do like in the Crusades? Because, you know, the people don't get happy when they know they've been led down a wrong road so long. Especially when they kept saying, nah, trust me, it's all good. We're in the same throng. So it's always good to check where you're at, because for many years I was like, I don't know, Lord, these churches look like a big scam. And then in just the past few years, He's been telling me, you know what, I want you to just live off the street. Just make it low key so not big. So nobody's looking at you begging like you piece of shit. But just beg from me, because I'm your king. And if I can supply you through years when you go hard up, you know, you've got his pennies around, then you'll know when things get really tough that there's no one else around that you need to worry about or need to trust than me. Because I'm your King of Kings, and I'm coming with gold for all those years you were waiting and struggling and asking me to help you with what seemed like gold. So, all right, Laura, let's do this. Sounds like a plan. Because, you know, to me, living in a car didn't seem that bad. Because I still remember when I got a job up in Alaska and I finally got up there. And we had to live in Valdez back before the oil spill in the 80s. We had to live in the brush during the summer because we just got a job. We didn't have money to pay rent and all that. So we just like pitched a tent. But it got cold at night, even in the summer up there. And I remember that I had hard times where I had to put pepper in my socks to keep my feet warm. And that was like a big discovery. But the problem was, sometimes I put so much that they just burn up. Take off my socks. But all this time that I've been here, living in a van or living in this car that my mom let me have after she went nuts and moved with my dad up to Oregon, where hopefully the care people care enough to try to keep their brains on and not force vax them or whatever they're trying to do. But do you see that it's just really simple, that once I started seeing that, oh yeah, you know what? As this hard times come, none of these churches were trying to go homeless, and realizing that many were every day. And you would think if they really were serving the king and knew he was homeless, they might have got a hint. So wait a minute, it's Christmas time and everybody's going like this? Now why don't I just, instead of going like this and cooping up in my house and hiding from a virus that I don't even know nothing about, why don't I just open my door and let people come in? Because they were the ones that I led down this path that now I'm not sure I'm in. And I'll just go live in my car and tell these people, hey, you know what? I think it's time for me to give more. Because you guys have given your part, so take my house and take my food, whatever you want. I'm just going to live in my car. And I want to do this for the people, to show them that I love them like the king. And that because they're living in their car in this hard time, I wouldn't hold that against them. Because I'm doing it too. But I don't need to tell them why. Just say that I'm going through hard times, because it should be true for me. Because if I've got money in the bank and a house, that's not because I earned it from the king. It's because it was given to me, and maybe it was a test that now I'm supposed to give it back. And if the flock of sheep saw me doing that, they might change their hearts too. And if I'm always naked going, you know what, I can't preach anymore with clothes because God's showing me he was naked. And I haven't really thought about that because I'm so caught up in this denominational trap. And they would start saying, you know, maybe all these doctrines I've been teaching you, you should just forget about, because I might have been off on that too. And maybe we should just think about the king that's coming, that all knees are going to bow to. And if we start doing that together now, then maybe it'd be more likely he would come. And then he wouldn't say to any of us, depart from me, I don't know you. Because many that will come in that day when he comes will walk up to him and say, hey, Jesus, in your name, you know what I did? And he'll say, depart from me, I don't know you. Because it doesn't matter if you were doing it in Jesus' name, whatever you were doing. If your heart wasn't right and you weren't for the king, it's all going to get burned up and there's going to be nothing left. That's what 1 Corinthians 3 is all about. Because it says all our works, that when we believe in him, all our works will be passed through the fire. And that fire will test it to see why it was that you did that. And if it was for self, it'll get burned up. But if it was for the king, it'll become gold. But if you go through that judgment and you got no gold, then that means that you're likely to be told, depart from me, I never knew you. Because you never did nothing for me. You never had your heart towards me. You were just following a fold who believed I was boiling in excrement? No, that's not my kind of gold. So my king's got gold and he's been saving it up with that naughty list. But that naughty list isn't everybody who you think isn't churched, as much as the churched ones being led down the wrong path. And that's where, you know, when the king comes and those who haven't been churched, they might quickly bow, recognizing their need for him in just a little they'd heard from the church. And they might be the first ones accepted by him because their heart wasn't already hard, because they hadn't sucked up all that Kool-Aid that put them in another jar. That jar is already sealed up and headed in the UFO to Frozen Town planet, where Spock is waiting there, and he's got the fur coat and fix vax and everything you need to keep you cold-blooded as hell for 1,000 years. Because see, the many of these doctrines and many of these churches, what they teach and what they love to push is that we are the only ones that God really loves and that we will bow down to him. But most of the world, they're all messed up and they're all going to be burning in hell. So they'll worship him too, but that's not our way, because we're the special ones of God. But you got to remember, that's the same thing that those ones that were wandering in the wilderness 40 years were saying, and still seem to be saying. But there was a reason they were wandering, and the same reason they had the orgy that suddenly got condemned, because they always think that God's not watching. But he's the one who made us all, so how would he not see everything and know everything at all? Like all the GMOs, all the poison, everything he knows. So when he comes, you can't be like half in, half out with all of this stuff at all. You just need to give it up and walk away. And now I see the whole pastor thing, it was what I suspected. Because these were used car salesmen just selling God, but in their heart, they didn't know him. So when they saw all this stuff going on, they're like, oh, we better follow too. Because I haven't heard anything from the king. Because they never were talking to him. Because princes can make you feel like you're praying to a king. Especially if you support the prince cause. Under the name of the king. Just don't mention the word king at all. Because then the princes won't let you sleep. And after all, you already sold your soul to them. So then things get pretty bleak. So as far as reality, it's always good to know that you're on the king's side and he can come when it's time. But until then, when you're with him, there's nothing to worry about. Because you figured out what the bad side's all about. And if it goes around the world and every knee bows instantly, except for some of these, then those are the ones that's going to be really ugly. And that's where the X-Men movies and the Star Trek movies come in. Because, see, Prometheus had some wild stuff in it about a planet. It looked pretty demonic. But if you think about it, when you have such a selfish heart that you can't accept that all people on the earth would love and worship one king who could do it all perfect, make everybody back to Adam and Eve, and have all truth, all naked, all gold for 1,000 years without problema? So that would take a deep cleaning of not only the land, but the people, to make sure we're all rooted in the king and not in some strange doctrine. Because these doctrines are getting really sketchy every day. And the more you believe in them, the more it has to say about what's in you and your heart. And look at other people, whether it be in Africa or in India or wherever the Buddhists are, or the Hindus, or all of these that we love to say are the wrong ones. But what if there was a piece of them all that was with us, with the king? And that's how it's meant to be. But the ones that are dirty might be like the seas of lies. Because those lies didn't come from just one or two people. And as I'm seeing on chat rooms, just quite a few leaders in the Christian church that are totally leading people astray and staying away from the king like it's a plague in its own way. It makes me wonder if the strictness of all these masks and everything might have to do with the fear of the king and how he might be coming soon on a day. So let's keep that in our minds. Say, thank you, King, that you're on my side, and help me to do all for you and not fall into this divide. Because when we're all one and we're on the same page, that's when we got power like wildfire. And we spread because we got pure love in our hearts. We got pure love for our King, pure love for this earth, and pure love for each other. And that's what makes the birds sing. So when they come over and I just love to hear them sing, because I know that they're not against me, and they can hear my songs, and they know that they're going to the king, and they're wanting him too. So what are you really about, and what's all your stress about, when you know that there's only a few that figured this out? But we can wake them up with the pleasantness in us. Because if we're so pleasant at heart, and all we say is, hey, keep that change. I can't take cash because my king is on the way. And so that cash does you any good. It's all good. But I just want you to know, greatest reset, love God, right? And love your neighbor as yourself. And then comes Eden again. And I'm looking forward to that. If you're not, try it out. Just wear a little less clothes. Get rid of this when you can. Look up. Talk to the king, who everybody's going to bow to one day. So why not start now? Because the more that we bow to him now, the more he feels ready to come now. So, hey, that's another one. Every knee's going to bow. And I did now. Or I did this morning. Or whatever, you know. Make a new saying. Make a new poem. Whatever. You put your new, what do you call it, thing on Twitter. Whatever. But this is how you spread it. Because it's so easy. It's just love. And that all that hate, it's all bullshit. And it comes out so easy when you just have pure love. When you think about a food business, just make organic pizza and give pieces away. And say, hey, man, I'm going to try opening a restaurant soon. And you can pay whatever for starts till the gold comes with the king. Because this money's all fake anyway. So just give me enough to keep covering my costs. So we'll call it, $3 a pizza, whatever. But when you show that kind of love, and then if somebody comes and said, oh, you're the health department. No, I don't sell GMOs. So you're the one that proves poison. Go work with those. I'm above that. I'm working for the king. Besides, you're all broke anyway. I'd probably buy the government tomorrow. So have a nice day. I'm out of time, but I love y'all. I want you to keep it up because we're working with the king. And it's always looking up.